City of Stevens Point Finance Committee meeting, recorded March 14, 2022.
Happy Pi Day, everyone. It's March 14th. This is the Stevens Point Finance Committee, and I'm calling the meeting to order at 6:24. Roll call, and we have Comptroller Treasurer is not feeling well, so he is not here. We wish him the best in recovery from an incident he had earlier this winter. Carrie is also not well, and so we have Susan, I believe.
Yeah.
Yep, there you are.
I'm here.
Yes, we saved the best for last, right?
Exactly.
All right, thank you for joining us and taking
Excuse me,
minutes.
Alderman. I just got a message. Jeremy Zelensky is muted.
I have not muted
If he
him.
presses *6 on his phone, he should be
Yeah.
unmuted.
Okay, thanks.
That's interesting.
Is he like the 5-3?
He's a 3408 something.
8494.
Thank you. I can't turn my head.
Now he's
that way.
unmuted. Jeremy, could you speak so we can hear you?
Or not.
Hello? Hello?
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, it works.
You hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. All right, good. Thanks. Yeah, I don't know what got muted somehow, but anyway, okay, we're good. Thanks.
Yep. All right. Thank you. And Susan, if you want to do roll call, please.
I sure will. Dalton,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Morrow,
Here.
Shore,
Here.
Slawinski.
Here.
Okay, that means 5 are present.
Wonderful. Thank you. Item 2, these are discussion and possible action on item 2, discussion and possible action on approving a grant transfer development agreement between the City of Stevens Point, Wisconsin Preservation Fund, Inc., and Gen Cap Dana Stevens Point 102 LLC. I'm assuming this is coming from your office, or at least that's the memo anyway.
Correct. So the city was awarded $915,000 in community development block grant funds to assist General Capital, who's the developer for the convent project, in acquisition of the convent property. General Capital is requesting that we disperse the funds to Wisconsin Preservation Fund Incorporated. That's a nonprofit who will ultimately lend the funds to General Capital. So consider this essentially a grant transfer agreement. Instead of with the developer directly, we do it through a nonprofit, and that prevents the monies from being considered for immediate income taxation. And when you have really tight projects like the convent property, development, any dollar counts. So staff has reviewed the agreement, would recommend approval as presented. More than happy to answer any other questions.
Alder Shore?
I move approval.
We
I
have
second.
a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I just have a question on the financing mechanics of it. If the nonprofit is lending it to the developer, is the intention then that developer pays back the nonprofit? And if so, how does that play out in the arrangement, and that is a separate
Isn't this a
organizational
grant?
entity?
I think lend is probably the incorrect word. I should have
Yeah.
used
It's like a
dispersed. Yeah, it's a
Okay.
pass-through.
I was just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
aren't they going to give it back to them then? And like, what is that? Okay.
With interest,
Yeah,
right,
that's what I was like,
Yeah.
this sounds like a strange thing. Okay.
Yeah. Good. Great clarification, because I was like, why would they pay back a grant?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Hi.
Anyone opposed would be no. Abstentions? Motion carries. Next item is discussion and possible action on approving additional capital project funding for improvements to the Donald Copps Municipal Pool. Director Kramer, the memo is from you, so you have the floor.
So this item is before you related to the capital budget. We originally had submitted during last year's capital budget process to do all 3 pool wells. So there's 3 pool wells at the pool. It's the large pool, the kiddie pool, I'll refer to it for the smaller children, and then the slide pool. just based on how tight our budget is, we dialed it back and it got, the two smaller pools got moved into 2023. So there's a $60,000 placeholder. Because what they're actually performing at the pool is the same process, we bid it as alternates to see how close it would be. What it came back with is that for $22,000 above what we budgeted in 2022, we can complete the other two. So in conversations with the comptroller and mayor, there's some funding left over from the 2021 capital process. Staff is recommending a reallocation so that we can complete all three on the same schedule, and then it'll become due again in 15 years, 12 to 15, for the next time we have to do it again.
All right, entertain a motion, yes?
Yeah, I'll move approval since there will clearly be a cost savings in doing it all at once
Yeah,
instead of over
definitely.
2 years.
And there is this, I'll give it to Alder Dalton. All right, discussion?
I just have a
Go
quick
ahead.
question, and I would also assume this helps operationally and that maybe closing for less days because you can just do it all at once or.
Exactly.
And
We
not
don't,
next year too.
we won't have to close it early 2 years in a row, so it'll all be done. It's the same thing for warranty. If we bid next year and a different contractor would get it, we technically would have warranties with two different companies within the same facility. So a lot of efficiencies of doing it the same year.
Good question. Anything else?
No.
Anything else? Excuse me. All right, good work on that, and it makes absolute sense. I appreciate that. All right, all those in favor of the motion to approve this transfer of money and the additional capital project, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed would be no. Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, next. Discussion and possible action on approving additional capital funding, project funding for the 2022 sidewalk repair project. And is Director Badoon, or who's, no. Oh, there you are.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So as luck would otherwise have it, we changed the policy, and then in year one, we go and blow the budget.
Well,
That's the long and short of what we otherwise have here too. We have been looking at, as we stated in the memo, trying to just keep up and make sure that we're following with some of the ADA stuff. And quite honestly, you know, I have to say we've probably been a little, not always lax, but always generous in trying to like wait for something truly to fail before we might otherwise mark it. We've been working towards doing that. So, excuse me. I know Comptroller Treasurer Laddick had looked at a historical average to set up this first year. And just unfortunately, as things otherwise came together, not as related to how we were changing the assessments, because our inspection was done already before that decision was made. So it was always kind of put there that when we went through and totaled what the cost, or at least what we estimate the cost to be, you know, it's just far exceeded. So we're here tonight just to see if there's, you know, the willingness to put together some more money so we can complete what we set out to do in this first year without the assessment.
it happens especially this year. As anybody doing construction this year knows. Yeah, 2022, don't build a landfill, that's for sure. Your costs are gonna double.
Oh, yes.
I guess we could entertain a motion. Yes,
I'll move approval.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. Discussion. Go ahead, Alder Shore.
Thank you, Chair. So obviously, this is repair of existing.
Correct.
And I do remember that we made this change. The old system of special assessments meant collecting the cost from people all over the city, and decided to simplify that. But if you could just update us on how this relates to sidewalk extension and the plans there.
Really, I mean, we've kind of looked at those as somewhat two separate approaches to do things. So, yeah, this is a repair of existing sidewalk, and then we also have what we'll probably be looking at, and I'll be bringing forward here later this year as far as the extension, where we're trying to fill the gaps where they exist, or just extend the sidewalk next to it to just try to improve the pedestrian environment throughout the city, and extend sidewalks where there just aren't any at the moment. And that was something that we look at kind of separate from this. We do an inspection every year, approximately 1/5 of the sidewalk in 1 year, then repair the following year. And we're putting together still a kind of a capital improvements plan of sorts for the sidewalk extension to come up with specific projects in targeted areas based on prioritization to try to extend the
And
sidewalk,
you
which
and I
will be coming
discussed
later.
the scoring system that looks at where a sidewalk would be most useful to put.
Correct. And then, yeah, and then we'll be bringing that forward this year for hopefully a project under that new sidewalk CIP for '23.
Thanks.
Alder Murrow?
If Corey was here, I'd ask, where's the money gonna come from?
Well, Susan, are you able to, have you had this internal discussion at all?
There's a
She's
memo.
on mute.
She's on mute.
No, we have not talked about it.
Okay.
Corey did not say anything when he spoke with me today.
Okay, I just thought I'd check, so no worry.
Okay.
So, yeah, and like I said, I only know from, I didn't spend much time talking with Corey into that, is just the, the brief memo he put in behind it as far as unspent capital from last year. What exactly that all means, that's
Right.
for him to explain.
That would have been my question too, if Corey was here. Corey has a way of being able to, Jeannie Dodge used to say, find the cookie jars. Supervisor Jeannie Dodge on county board. I feel confident that if Corey is unable to accommodate your request, you will be back here next month, I would imagine.
What we'll most likely have to do is just truncate our project.
Okay.
We're trying to otherwise get it out, so we'll look at it. The unfortunate thing is what we'll be looking forward to as we move forward is trying to prioritize the various improvements. Like since this was done otherwise before the change for the assessment done,
Okay.
it was kind of done in a much way. We really have two, things we others look at is one, is it a result of a street tree or is it a city issue so it's covered by the city,
Right.
or is it something that's otherwise accessible?
Sure.
And so this year, that's really the only way we segregated it. As we move forward, starting this year, we'll be looking at trying to prioritize more about what it is to make sure that we capture, if it's somewhat, just like cracks that aren't necessarily yet to ADA, but we know that in 5 years they're gonna be there, we'll prioritize that lower, maybe let that go. This one, we'd probably just truncate it. It would most likely be geographic. We'll try to pick up as much as we can with our
Sure.
own staff to try to cover the gap that we have. And the rest of it will probably then just go till next year.
Do we have a successful vendor for concrete work like this? I don't recall.
We historically have worked, Robolowski seems to otherwise get it up in the last few years.
Right.
They've been not as competitive. I know last year we used Farner for the first time. They seem to do a pretty good job. So
Yeah.
I would say we're kind of almost in between, contractors at the moment to see what we will get.
Well, the reason I ask is because mobilization costs obviously are, I would suspect, going to impact this maybe even more. Transportation costs, so finding a local contractor to me would make sense rather than having, I don't know, what's the company out of Green Bay but you know what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Anyone else? Director, or do you have another question? Go ahead.
The only problem I have is like not knowing where the money is gonna come from, because they say unused money, like how much unused money is there? And I know for the pool, we will use some extra unused money. So it's like, how much money are we able to do?
Yeah, that's a good question. Susan, have you closed out, I don't think the audit has taken place to close
No.
out 2021, right?
Right, and Corey did put in his first memo that there was, I believe, 218,000 available
Yeah.
in unspent funds. And I think he was saying,
208,
I didn't see that.
And that was in the
think-
parks.
208.
Page 14 of the
yeah,
agenda.
208. So I think he was saying that the pool money would come from that,
Okay,
and then also the sidewalk project
okay.
would come from that money.
So it's unspent 2021.
Okay.
Seems reasonable. Thank you, Susan.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Alder Kamer, please.
Alder Keemer, District 3. Director Karnowski, can you share the map on page 17 on the screen, or is it not? If it's not pulled up, that's okay. On page 17, there's maps of the 5 different sidewalk areas, and I guess my question for Director Badoon, given this increase, which maybe is due to construction costs and ADA compliance and all those other things you mentioned, would you consider changing those 5 boundary areas? I mean, that east side that's going to be replace next year is massive. And I thought when this was discussed last year, part of that was that that side of town has, sort of more suburban. There's less sidewalks than there are like in the center of town where sidewalk is pretty concentrated heavy. So I guess just, any thought about changing those boundaries, or do you think that's not really necessary or an issue?
Changing the boundaries is something, we're in part constantly looking at to see how it otherwise portrays. And as we extend the sidewalk network, of course, it just becomes necessary that we do that. Pertaining to the topic at hand and the funding, I really don't see that the boundaries themselves play a role in it. There are, several other, things I think at work, more so than the boundary. Because really even though there are geographical sizes various, is the amount of sidewalk contained within each is relatively close. So it's just a little different makeup though. When you get to the core of the city, you'll get some of those. There's some very old sidewalk though, but just because of the makeup of the city, the roadway, there maybe aren't as many trees that impact there. When you get out on the east side, it is more of a suburban sort of rural area where there are though the sidewalks. There's still plenty of trees. There may be trees in swales, and I think a lot of that over the past few years. Thinking back to when this was last otherwise inspected, we had the big storm in 2017. Was about the last time this one was done, and other storms since then. So you've got trees coming over that have been worked on. You've got roofs that others need to replace, and most likely, though we can't pinpoint it, contractors driving over the sidewalk to access houses and drop off materials, and a whole variety of things that have probably contributed here. There's probably a litany of things that could be added to the list that have probably contributed to some of the disrepair of the sidewalk throughout these areas.
That makes sense. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Director Badoon. All right, we have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor of providing the additional funding for the sidewalk repair project, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? I'm sorry, Jeremy, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Anyone who is opposed would be no. Abstention? Motion carries. Thank you. Next up, discussion and possible action on approving a request for additional capital project funding for airport runway improvements at the City of Stevens Point Municipal Airport. Metz and Field Director.
Yeah, you guys will recall last we talked about the airport project. We were approving a memorandum of understanding between us and the would-be contractor for the runway project.
Yes.
And at the same time, the sponsor-only memo that says that up until basically the FAA's got the money to fund this project, we're saying we're responsible. So that MOU was between us and the contractor saying don't spend money till that point, basically.
Yes.
This is what we referred to in that meeting that would be coming forward to modify that capital. At the time that capital was acted on, we had some numbers that don't match the current scope. So we're at a total, and I will say this is kind of worst case scenario, the 302,000. We're very hopeful that there's going to be about $100,000 in other funding still available in this project. But being that this is where we're at, this is kind of what we need approved on the heels of those other two agreements, and everything's kind of a go right now.
And this is through the enterprise?
This is city capital.
Oh, this is
So
city
this
capital.
is
I just
through-
wanted to make sure.
Yep, this
Thank
is
you.
through the airport, but it was an adjustment to the city 2022 capital.
Just
Yep.
wanted to make sure that we understood the difference.
Mhm.
All right, we have an item. I would entertain a motion prior to discussion.
I'll motion to approve the additional.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. I see us all short over there, like getting ready, but kind of hesitant.
Arm wrestle it. All right, we have a motion and a second. Discussion or questions for Director Lemke? Any other questions? Thank you, Director Lemke, bringing it back to the committee. We have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor of the motion to provide the additional capital funding for the runway improvements, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? I've got to wait. Anyone opposed would be no. Abstentions? Motion carries. Remind me to wait. All right, next item is discussion and possible action on approving funding for the design of roads and other infrastructure within TIF 9. Who's taking this one on?
Sure, I mean, it's from both Director Badun and I.
I was going to say, between the two of you, yeah.
Yeah, so essentially before you, we are in need of updating our professional services contract with Rupert Milke, who's been our design engineer firm in East Park Commerce Center for a number of years now. We are to the point where we need to start really getting into some serious design for the extension of Badger Avenue, which is the north-south extension to County Road HH and other future extensions for not only the roadway design, but also for the sewer and water design in East Park. As part of being the second largest shovel-ready site in the state of Wisconsin, having the 80% design work done and ready to go is a pretty critical component of getting projects and developments in the ground. We've been really successful with getting Rupert Milke to do the design for the extension of EM Cops. This is Lineage Logistics. They're actually on their 6th expansion. This aerial map is from 2020, and they've actually already built out to, or will be building out to here. And so we're very happy with them. Would recommend approval of granting the professional services agreement in the amount of $251,800 to Rupert Milke as part of the planning project.
Yes, Alder Shore.
Yeah, I'll move approval. The key piece is the shovel ready. This is about being ready to move quickly if new opportunities arise of new tenants.
Correct.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second it.
Second by Morrow. Discussion. Oh, go ahead, Director Lemke.
I just wanted to point out the
Yeah.
2 items on there that were in blue, the utility
Right.
items. The Water and Sewerage Commission did meet today on this same item, the same info, and they did
Okay.
approve those 2 items.
Thank you for that, because it was going to be one of my questions, so that's appreciated. Questions, comments?
Only comment I would have, it's nice to have this, that this is going to be ready for us. When the developers arrive, they want to do things as fast as they can, and if the infrastructure's already there,
Yeah.
that's one way to put us a foot up than everybody else.
Right. Well, I think as Alder Shore said, the idea of shovel ready, and what that does is it gives us one other promotional wing, and that's the state of Wisconsin. So that's always a plus. And then and this is funding through TIF 9, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Alder Slawinski, any questions? I haven't called on you enough. I apologize.
No, you're good. You're good. No questions. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you. Kevin Flatoff, 2151 Ellis Street. When is this project supposed to take place approximately? Do we have an idea?
This is the design of the
Okay.
roadways, so the actual physical construction wouldn't occur until a project is, or development is ready to happen. That's how we've historically designed East Park. We don't overbuild the infrastructure. We do it when the time is right.
Sure. And the reason I'm asking is because of the possible ordinance we all know about. That's why the time frame. Do we have a cost on this, or do we have to wait till the design is done? Is the TIF going to take care of the cost, or is it going to come out of the taxpayer?
Go ahead,
The
Alder.
TIF district would
Director.
cover those costs for road extensions.
Okay.
Relating to the ordinance, it would definitely put a damper on our shovel readiness.
Okay. So if the TIF takes care of it, that's not going to be taxpayer money, correct? Will it be counted as that according to the ordinance, if you're familiar with the ordinance?
I guess
That would be something.
that's something for the city attorney and
Okay.
I to discuss, because it's
Sure.
how that would function is different.
Yeah, and I just want an idea because, the other road projects, of course, are important to us, and we do want those to pass because the ordinance pretty much pertains to Business 51. So I'd like to know what's going on with other road projects if they're going to be over $1 million for taxpayer expenditure, because of course I'm going to want to endorse those projects and let the public know.
Well,
So-
we could take a guess that the Badger Avenue extension will be far exceeding the $1 million
Yes.
cost.
Sure.
In fact, you're probably
possible
closer
railroad
to
spur.
2.5, 3 million.
Yeah.
The railroad spur along the north side of East Park Commerce Center has a cost about $4 million, and that's considered transportation as well.
Now, is this gonna be considered 1, 2, 3 projects? Or is it gonna be one
Could be
project?
several.
It's all dependent on
Yeah.
development being
Because,
completed.
I don't know if you're aware, but in the last 9 years, there have only been 7 road projects over $1 million. But we'll get into that on next Monday. So, and then, that's, of course, this is a concern to me because we don't want to shut down road projects. To us, it's Business 51 we're concerned about. And the only way to put that on a binding referendum is to create an ordinance. So, everybody's hands are kind of tied, but that's, I guess I'll kind of touch with Director Badoon and the mayor in the future on that too, and just kind of keep updated, because we do want to see the other road projects, of course, move forward. Thank you, Director.
And my understanding is the referendum doesn't say Business 51, it says transportation projects, is that correct? I mean, the plain language.
That is correct, and it's really, you can call it a referendum, but it's an ordinance. We're through direct legislation
Right. It is a
creating a law. The
referendum
reason
to
it doesn't
create-
say
yes.
Business 51 is because the lawyers looked at Stevens Point laws for, well over 20 hours. The only way to put Business 51 on a binding referendum, binding, which is the word, is to create an ordinance. And that's why Business 51 is not specific to the upcoming
I
referendum.
just wanted to make clear
Sure.
the plain language, that's all.
Thank you, Alderman.
You're welcome. Okay, other questions? Yeah, we want to keep this and many other projects going to move into the 21st century, which is a great idea. Anything else? All right, we have a motion on the floor and a second to move forward with the design of roads and other infrastructure within TIF 9. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed would be no. Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Item 7, discussion and possible action on awarding the bid for improvements to the fire department training site. Director Badoon, I didn't know if fire chief was going to be a part of this, but
I'm sure Chief Moody would speak on it if you asked him.
yeah.
What do we always have in the packet? There is the bid tabulation there. We had just the two. It seems that contractors are still busy. A lot of private work. That will probably change people think over the next year, but right now contractors are still busy, so we were glad to see the two.
Yeah.
We were right there at our engineer's estimate, $200,000 was the engineer's estimate, so with about 1% off.
Yeah.
We're sorry we missed the target on that one, but we thought we came in very well on there. We're not exactly sure what happened with the earth one. We actually think that that's most likely a mistake on their part. There isn't that much grading to be done worth $100,000. We think they just may have added a zero when they put in their tab. It's an electronic online bidding, but of course, once it's otherwise submitted, we can't otherwise go back.
You mean the subgrade?
Yes, the subgrade
Yep,
thing
that's what they
versus,
did.
$9,000 from Chuchinski's versus
Yep.
100,000. We're speculating that was meant to be 10,000, but unfortunately, we're caught with what they put into the bid. So we're happy with what we are, except we're right at the estimate, and we'd like to move ahead with Chuchinski's and finish up that project.
Bids are firm and fixed.
Yes.
Entertain a motion.
Tomorrow so moved.
Second.
And we have a motion and a second. And discussion.
This fire training site is going to be a big boost for us because it's going to bring in firefighters from all over the state. I just want to remind everybody that how much this is really going to help our own city as well, with not just the added training, but having the trainers here as well to help our own fire department.
Absolutely. Other questions, comments? Word to the wise, when you're bidding, double check your numbers. Congratulations to Stuczynski. Anyone from the public? Thank you, Director. We have a motion on the floor and a second, excuse me, to award the bid for improvements to the fire department training site to Stuczynski. My apologies. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed would be no. Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, item 8, discussion and possible action on authorizing the Department of Public Works to apply for various infrastructure improvement grants related to the Federal Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, long thing, including STP Urban, STP Local, and STP Bridge. You're the man tonight.
Apparently I am.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had this much on the Finance Committee in one night in the past.
Yeah.
Get that money.
Yeah.
So, as everyone's otherwise probably aware, and I included in the memo, the act is now law, the bipartisan infrastructure law. There's a lot of money coming out. Quite honestly, even the DOT doesn't know exactly what the appropriations of all that are, so we don't necessarily know, quite honestly, what it is we're chasing. But we do know that others exist there, and the deadlines are fast approaching. So we've identified in this very first solicitation for federal fiscal year 2022, those funds will need to be obligated by the end of the fiscal year, which is September. So in order to do that, things are moving quickly. We feel that we've got a very good opportunity here because there's really no one out in front of us on this one. Everybody's in the same boat. Even if you're the larger communities, chances are you have not designed your local work to state standards using their format, ready for them to do the letting and all. So we figured that it's well worth the opportunity to do that. In addition, something that's actually new is the STP Local. Typically it's been urban, which is collector, functional classification or higher. So it's something others new, and most likely there's nobody out there of any community that has something ready to go on the shelf. But these are simple projects. This is just going to be, mills and overlays. There's not a lot of construction there. We don't want to get into curb. In fact, we've got a couple of challenges that we'll others have to go through, and it seems that everyone's very much in the same boat as far as even getting ADA compliance, because through the funding, they really don't want you to work behind the gutter on these projects, quite honestly, simply because, as we would do a local project, if we needed to put up forms behind the gutter and we were going to disturb someone's, 6 inches, 8 inches of foot in front, we would just talk with the landowner and we'd get there. Under the federal laws, that is a real estate interest. We would need a TLE. We would need to go through the entire process of doing that. So it's very much everything between the gutter. And so we feel we have a very good chance of getting some of the money. But on that, as I mentioned about having the states format and stuff like that, it is going to require, and that's the next item, utilizing an engineer who is very familiar with those requirements and the formatting and stuff to make sure that we don't lose funding along the way by not following the process. But we otherwise identifying here, if we otherwise are successful with the project, there's roughly $1 million potential in work here, and with the local match, about 80% of that, so like 220. So it's a great opportunity for us, and I think it's well worth chasing if you agree.
I agree. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
And is there a second? And there's a second. Discussion. Yes, Alder Shore.
Thank you for your work on this. This does sound like an excellent opportunity. These would be in the surface improvement budget otherwise, right? And this is about getting federal funding to do something
right.
we pay for.
Because yes, North 2nd Street is something that's on the fringes, not part of our near-term strategy. Illinois has actually been a road that's been kicked down the road several times already, just waiting for an opportunity to get the funding to complete the project, doing exactly what it is that we're looking to do with this funding if we can get it.
Other questions? Working in another jurisdiction and then also serving on another board in an additional jurisdiction. I know everybody is looking for the final rules to come out on this, and so once we get that, we need to be ready, set, go, because everybody wants this money.
Oh yes, absolutely everybody does.
Yeah. I'm trying to get some too for a wastewater treatment facility. That'll make Director Lemke happy. All right, any other questions? All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve the Public Works Department to ready, set, go, and apply for the STP Urban, STP Local, STP Bridge under the Federal Infrastructure Bill. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed would be no. Abstentions? Motion carries.
Just a point of information, Alder Slowinski is no longer on the Zoom.
Oh. Did he run out of power on his phone?
He's on the road in his Ultra.
Oh, that happens. Number 9, discussion and possible action on approving funding for engineering and design services related to the various infrastructure grant application.
Thank you.
It is the
So-
Director Badoon show.
Continuing from where we left off, as others mentioned, in order to ensure that we don't lose funding along the way, simply that we make sure we follow all the rules that will apply to us. We've reached out, and again, every other community is reaching out to engineers as well to try to get there. So when Grammar, especially them being local, said that they could take on the work, we were elated that we could get someone so close, and they'd have to go outside the region and try to find an engineer with capabilities that may not be as familiar with things. And also, I think I really thought their pricing is probably more commodity-based at this time, just trying to get through some of these projects. I'm assuming there's a little more time put into the bigger project than there is the smaller one that we picked, but I think at $50,000 a piece, I think that's reasonable, as well as the understanding that if we're not selected, we'll stop work and we'll only pay them for the hours that we others use. So there's not the big risk there as far as undertaking the entire engineering if we don't have to. But we do need to get started sooner than later to ensure that we can finish, because the first deadline is August 1st to have all of our PS&E. So all of our design has to be completed by August 1.
Holy smokes. Wow.
That's why we're going to beat everyone else, right?
Right. That is why we're going to beat everyone else.
Yes, I like a positive attitude. We don't have a motion yet, do we?
Nope.
No.
Yes.
No, and I would entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of the engineering services.
Is there a second?
I second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. Questions? Excellent. Bring it back to the committee. All those in favor of the motion to approve the engineering and design services related to the various infrastructure grant applications, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed would be no. Abstentions. Motion carries. Item 10, discussion and possible action on approving a change order with AECom related to the additional hours for the Business 51 project. Director Badoon.
Thank you. Now, changing topics.
Changing topics.
Yes. So I've been others working, of course, with AECom since the beginning of the Business 51 study. As I otherwise identified in the memo, really after the recommended alternative was agreed upon, and there were some concerns as far as, especially through Church Street, we called upon AECom to try to assist us with that. So there are, a number of these hours are already in the books, and AECom has just been waiting patiently to get paid for those. There are some additional future services as we're looking forward to as well to continue to do with that. I think it was always our intent in meeting with the Southside business and property owners as well as those in the Central North to not only just meet with them the one time and listen to their concerns, but meet with them again and share with them our findings and explain to them, what changes we otherwise are going to implement, or what constraints we have that maybe prevent us from accomplishing what they wish that we could. As well as just some additional meeting times that were asked for on the way, meeting with the county, coming to another Board of Public Works meeting here in the future, as well as just some assistance with the BIL funding, looking for their assistance. They had assisted us with our current SDP urban grant for the South Side, is to give us some additional assistance to ensure we've got the best application we can put forth on another segment of that. With all the money being available, it seems to be beneficial to put our hat in the ring and look for some additional funding.
All right. I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Come on, Troy.
You're moving to approve.
Yes.
You usually vote in, or the motion should be in the affirmative, or, yeah. You can always vote against, but then. Questions, comments?
One of the questions I have is like with the referendum, one of the concerns is getting more involved until we find out what we're able to really do. I did make a motion because I wanted to be able to have a topic of discussion for this as well, because I know depending on what the referendum does, that's going to change a lot of what we plan on actually being able to do. Mm-hmm. And different avenues we might have to also take. I know that AECom is involved in a lot of other projects that we also have though as well. So, I mean, to have them involved with some of the other projects that we have, I think that is a good idea to have them ready. But in regard to Business 51, I think we've also already had a motion, and we're not going to proceed any further with that until we find out how the referendum goes. Is that correct?
Sort of, kind of.
Yeah, sort of, kind of. I mean, we're definitely concentrating on the north side because that's something that, there is the TIF that can
Right.
assist with paying, for that. However, we are working somewhat yet on the south and middle sections. Just we have to impart in tandem because this change, or even the one in front of you, doesn't necessarily account for all the study and evaluation to address those concerns that have been brought up. Part of that is coming out of the 30% design, so we can't put the firm stop on it, or we can't continue to develop the answers that people are asking, for us to evaluate. And within there, I think it's important that we continue to get answers for people, because if we stop altogether, I think there are some people out there that, I think there is a compromise to be made, and if we don't find that compromise, then we're leaning to one side hard or the other side hard, for or against. I'd like to think that there's some middle ground that we can be made up if we just continue to proceed slowly, but continue to proceed.
Okay.
And part of this is for work that was outside the scope of what they had done. Correct.
Correct,
yeah.
yes. And some
So
work
they
that
put
was-
the hours in, so
They've
not
already,
to, yeah.
correct, put in the hours, yes.
Right. But good question, though. Honestly, I agree. Yes, Alder Shore.
Thank you, Chair. To check and make sure that I understand, picking up on what Alder Murrow was asking. So this stems from the commitment to, a pretty deeply engaged dialogue with stakeholders, some of which has already taken place. This provides for more. Related to the Business 51 plan, we all know that, as we were saying before, if the referendum passes, then the process will be opened up for other projects, and this may be something we need to look at in connection with those. But just one additional comment. I know it was distressing for me to hear characterizations of those discussions that staff have had, and descriptions of staff being closed off and not willing to compromise or cooperate. And no need for you to respond, but just to kind of say that those descriptions don't square with my experience with the staff, and I just wanted to kind of say that for the record.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Kevin Flatoff again, thank you. I see a lot of familiar faces. I do have to apologize for missing the last city council meeting. I'm sure you guys missed me.
I'm glad you're feeling better.
Thank you. I noticed it was a pretty mellow meeting too, so maybe I shouldn't come to anymore.
I think we had a young person here, which dictated a high level of decorum from adults, so.
Yeah, and once we got our signatures, the direction's pretty much changed, so I'm sure it's gonna be pretty mellow. We went through the rough patches, for
Always rough
4 or
patches
5
in
months.
relationships.
Yeah, so, we're all ready to move forward, and it does appear that you are open up to making a few changes. Director, thank you. That's important to us, but I'm a little tired and ornery tonight. I apologize for that. I just came from the auto auction, and like you were talking about inflated prices, cars are crazy right now.
Yeah, it's not fun.
So my question is, and I meant to call you today, Director Badoon, but, you don't have to answer it now, or I can buzz you tomorrow, but is it possible, I believe they're requesting $85,000? Is that
Yeah,
correct?
and
Somewhere in
change.
that area?
Yeah.
Is it possible to break that down? I'm kind of curious, the 2 days of meetings that you guys had with us, how much they're charging us for the 2 days. You know, and I do understand, I had a meeting with the mayor on Friday, and he mentioned this is part of the process. And he made it clear that, you know, don't necessarily blame AECom because the city council told them the direction to head. And put the 2-lane road on the table without a 4-lane option. So I'm not gonna point fingers at AECom, I can't do that, you know? They're just doing what they were told.
Council never told them to do a 4-lane road. Well, I won't argue that.
Yeah,
now.
well, as far as I understand, were they given an option for a 4-lane road?
We were only presented one option in September.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, and it may be rumors, from what I understand,
That's great, we're having the discussion.
yeah, then that's good. You know, from what I understand, and this is coming from other people that were at some of the stakeholder meetings, that
Sure.
Tori Jennings, when she was alderman, made it clear to Amy Canfield that a 4-lane road is not an option. So I'm just curious, you know, why there wasn't a 4-lane option.
Sure.
And maybe that's something you can answer at a different time, Director Badun.
I think too, Mr. Flatoff, you know, the realization that the desires of one alder is not the desire of all. And it may be of some, but when we come here as a body, you know, we vote. And
Sure.
so, but we were presented the one option based on a number of criteria. I'll let Director Badun speak. And that, was that in August or September? I don't remember when Amy came to Public Works. That was in September, I believe, right?
She came in August.
Why don't you, Mr. Flatoff, if you don't mind?
Yes, yeah, Amy Canfield came in August and presented, and then the vote was in September.
Yeah, thank you. I knew that it was that. And could you lay out why the that recommendation in just 2 or 3 sentences? Why that was the recommendation, what the basis of
I'll
that
add a
was?
couple more if I can, just to give
In
more
what sense?
context.
I'm timing you.
Yes. So,
Take
well,
us to
because what was
timing
otherwise
me.
presented, just to otherwise clarify that, is because what was presented to the board and to the council, you know, was the recommended alternative. It wasn't an a la carte to, do you want to see A or B here? Do you want to see B or C? Do you know, it's not like going to your vision, do you like, 1 or 2? 2 or 3? It was given one section and say, this is what we recommend, and we presented why we recommended it. We went through our scoring and identified why we recommended it. That was presented, and then we asked for a vote to accept that recommendation. So that's really what it goes. So it wasn't an a la carte. It wasn't anyone on the council saying, no, don't like that one. Ooh, that one looks really good. It really was just yes or no. This is what we have to recommend, because that's what staff's job is to do. We bring those recommendations. It wasn't to say, we've been through the process, so we worked it to the end, and we brought the end product for a vote. And that's exactly how it played out.
Does that make sense?
It sort of does.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just curious, for $1.1 million,
Sure,
why-
but in order,
Are we getting off?
yeah, we are getting off, so,
And
but I
we're
just
gonna
wanted
talk
to,
about this on Monday.
and this isn't, Alderman, you know, this is about the cost. You know, and which the 85 that we're approving, and that's kind of what, another 85 on top of 1.1 million without an option for 4 lanes, and we can talk about that later. I can call you, but I would just, if we can break down the 2 days of meetings, I'm kind of curious what AECom's charging us for those meetings. And most importantly, what came out of those meetings? What adjustments from the meetings with the approximately 30 to 50 business owners did you guys come up with? And I know it's only 30% and you're still working on it, but for the price that we're paying AECom for 2 days of meetings, I don't know how much that is, I'm not gonna guess. Hopefully, 57 driveways is not gonna be 57 anymore.
why don't we do this? Because you're
Yeah,
kind of
and
exceeded
that's
the
all,
time
I
frame.
just wanna know the cost, and
Right.
I could talk to Scott tomorrow if
I'm
that's
sure
cool, I just wanted to make it.
I will ask Director Badun to contact you tomorrow.
Thank you.
You're very
I
welcome.
think that'd be great.
And again, for everyone, it's best if we don't point fingers at people because we'll never accomplish anything that way. So Alder Jennings did do a number of things and on behalf of her district. So thank you for doing that, Alder Jennings. Now she's a private citizen. Sir?
started walking before to cut down on the
You
time.
should have.
Yeah.
I'm very disappointed.
Just getting back to what Alder Morrow, Ron Carlson, 3356 Oak Avenue, just getting back to what Alder Morrow brought up, and I'm just, again, looking for a compromise here. When I do something at our home, I pay when the job is done. Is there any way, Director Badoon, that we could pay the city that portion of the $85,000 that's already been accomplished, already the work's been put in, and sort of put on hold whatever that balance is until the work is completed and come back and do that? Oh, sure. Sorry.
Go ahead, Director.
And the answer to that is yes. And in fact, specifically with this change order, which is different than the others, this is a time and material. So if we don't utilize the hours, if we don't use the additional days, we're not going to pay for those. So we can pay for them for what we otherwise have used the services, but otherwise we're just authorized to use those. And I do have a very rough number to answer Mr. Flatov's
thank you.
question. And each day is a little over $10,000.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Go ahead, Alder Short.
Thanks, Chair. So,
Back and forth.
just 2 quick points. One about the contract itself. This is to continue the discussion and follow through on all the issues that have been raised.
Mm-hmm.
If we didn't spend the money, we wouldn't, I mean, I don't think that the Southside business owners or any of the stakeholders, because the whole discussion has been wanting to more opportunity to talk things through and figure out, figure it all out. I'm not sure why questions would be raised from that direction. A quick point on the larger picture is that in terms of what shaped the alternatives, just I think one central consideration was the size of the right-of-way, as I understand it.
But we're getting off.
Yep, sorry.
Yep. Director Badoon, you've been awesome this evening, by the way. Thank you. I just wanted, you've been put under a little bit of fire and you've had all the answers. So, my daytime job, I'm staff, I know what that's like, so I appreciate that. Anything else?
Just take 2 seconds, I don't have to get to the mic.
No, you have
Yes,
to.
you have to go to the mic.
Okay, sorry.
So, and you need to keep it
How about 8.5 seconds?
counting.
Through this whole process, I want everybody to know that Mayor Wiesa and Director Badoon have been professional and awesome. Anytime I picked up the phone, they answered and they listened. So I just want to thank you guys.
They are, Director Badoon is awesome. Thank you. Okay. All those, are we done?
Yes, thank you all.
No, I didn't ask just you. I was asking everybody else. Yes. All right. Bringing it back to the committee. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed would be no. Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Great discussion. And our final item is discussion and possible action on approval of claims paid. I would entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of claims already paid.
Already
Second.
paid. And we got a second? Any questions? Of course, were provided to us in 2 different formats, those over $50,000, which is always nice, so we don't have to search, and then our regular ones. Any questions, comments? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed would be no. Abstentions? Motion carries. We are out of agenda items. It is 7:17, and at the discretion of the chair, we are adjourned.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.